All right. Testing. Is this thing on? Is this thing on? We working? All right. Seeing a smile from Eric over here, so I think we're rolling. Um, Hello, everybody. We are going to get started here in just a minute. We're going to wait for some folks to come in. In the meantime, I thought it could be kind of fun to ask AI to come up with some jokes for us. So, as folks are trickling in here, I'm just going to ask ChatGPT, tell us a joke about AI and customer success. Let's see what we got here. Let's see. Why was the customer success manager afraid of the chatbot? Because it had a reputation for giving mercilessly accurate feedback. Oh, ChatGPT, I think you can do better. I think you can do better than that. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Maybe we can. Let's try. Tell us a joke about AI. Let's give it a little more room to work with here. Let's see. Why don't robots read novels? Because they prefer short stories. All right. So maybe joke and pun writers, I think your jobs are safe from AI. I think you're going to be okay because I think it's not quite replaced that just yet. So yeah. So let's see. What else? Anybody else got any good AI jokes? Maybe we can do something better here. Hello, Sachin. How's it going? Omkar is here. Oh my goodness. I'm just looking at the chat over here. All sorts of good things. Exciting. Glad to see you all here today. Feel free to, post in the chat if you got any questions you're hoping we'll cover or anything that you're like, oh man, please, for sure talk about this, or, any good prompts for AI and customer success jokes. I'm all here. Yeah. We'll just wait a few more minutes for folks to come on in. I know that sometimes it takes a little bit to get in once you get that initial notification. Mike Morandi in the house. Glad to have Mike here. Mike, he's gonna help. We've got some other PixieBrix folks here to kind of help with questions in the chat, because sometimes when I start presenting, it's a little hard for me to look at the chat and look over here. So, but don't worry, we've got a whole bunch of friends here helping keep an eye out on stuff, helping to take care of everything here. So excited to see you all. And let's see. Let's try one more time. Let's just say, tell us a joke. Let's just, give it full reign. It doesn't even have to be about AI. Let's see what it can do. Why did the tomato turn red? Because it saw the salad dressing. Okay, that's a good one. I'm a fan of that one. I'm kind of liking that one. That's pretty good. I'm gonna give it some props for that. And by the way, for those of you who are joining in, you're like, how are you asking ChatGPT from the browser? I actually wrote this PixieBrix mod that you open it with a keyboard shortcut and you say ask ChatGPT, and you post the prompts. So it could be, literally anything. You'd say ask a joke. You'd say rewrite this text. You could say, just tell us another joke. And you press ask AI. It's gonna ask ChatGPT. And behind the scenes, it does all this, then shows in the sidebar your joke. And it says, why don't scientists trust atoms? Because they make up everything. Okay, this is pretty good. So yeah, and you can now copy it to your clipboard just in case it's like, you're asking for it to write text and send it somewhere, or you can save it to a Google Sheet if you want to like save your prompts and, view past conversations. So anyways, all right. So I think the summary on ChatGPT and jokes is that if you make it too specific, it doesn't know how to handle it. But if you're a little bit broad, it can. So for those of you here wondering, did I come to an AI and customer success event or a ChatGPT jokes event? This is the AI and PixieBrix for customer success event. We are just waiting just a few more minutes for everybody to get on in here and get all settled in. So, yeah, feel free, like I said, post in the chat, say where you're from, any questions or anything you're hoping to cover. If you've used PixieBrix before, Amkar, I know you're here. You have, so feel free to share anything you'd like. Sweet. Cool. All right, well, I think we're probably good to get started here. Go ahead and kick it off, and we'll, we can pass back and forth and catch folks up to speed if they need to. But we'll go ahead and start. So, today we are here to talk about how to transform customer success with AI and PixieBrix. And just to kind of kick that off and introduce myself, my name is Brittany Joyner. I am head of developer relations here at PixieBrix, which means I get to build things with our tool and help other people do that and help you figure out how to solve problems with PixieBrix. And so, today we're going to be talking about specifically AI and how to do that. So, through our agenda today, we're going to start with what is PixieBrix, and you may be here and have no idea what where you're interested in AI, but what is PixieBrix? So we're going to talk about what is PixieBrix. We're going to talk about how customer success teams can use it and what that looks like, and I'm going to show you some demo cases of specific things that we've built. And then I'm going to show you how you can customize and build your own AI tools with PixieBrix. And then I'll show you how to get started. So that all sounds good. Feel free to jump right in here with me. Livy is here, and Alexandra, Bartika. Awesome to see you all here. Very, very excited. So, yeah. So, talking about what is PixieBrix, some of you here may be familiar, some of you may be a little new to it, but PixieBrix is a low-code browser automation tool that allows you to customize your experience in web apps. And what that means is you're able to manipulate elements in your browser. And so, right now you're watching LinkedIn probably through your browser. You see buttons on the side, you see, different elements you can interact with. And so PixieBrix lets you manipulate those elements to basically add buttons to the page or scrape data from the page and then chain on different actions to happen as a result of those. And it's a tool. It's a tool for, I like to keep it simple. You can think of fetching or sending info between your different tools to enhance your workflows and the things your team is working on. So let's say you're using Zendesk. You can do things behind the scenes without having to leave Zendesk. You can interact with other tools. You can get data from Pipedrive. You can, while you're in Salesforce, you can look something up, get an answer to a question, ask AI to help you rewrite something. So, and all of this requires no engineering teams. Like, you don't need to have a whole engineering team to build you all these custom solutions. It's very low code, and a lot of the things we build will honestly require very, very little code. So that is what PixieBrix is. And, don't take my word for it. I'm obviously biased because I love PixieBrix. Before I even started working for PixieBrix, I was using it in so many different ways for about a year. And so I'm super excited. I use it for all kinds of things in my life. And you can see that other folks do as well. So we have a lot of success and a lot of different people who are finding interesting workflows. So yeah, so let's dive into it. I'm going to switch back and forth. I'm going to show you, kind of talk about a use case, and then I'm going to go actually demo it so you can see what it looks like. But the first one we want to talk about is finding answers in a knowledge base. And so what you might have a process of doing right now is you get a question from a customer. You have to go open up your internal docs or your knowledge base and kind of search around and hope the search is good enough to find something useful. And then, find that answer and then rewrite it and copy it and put it into your response. But what this mod lets you do is define your knowledge base so you can set that to a specific point. For this example, I'm going to show you having it set in a Google Sheet. And then you can select text from any web page. So in this case, like I said, we're going to do Zendesk, and we're going to get, somebody's question. And then PixieBrix and AI is going to go search in that defined knowledge base for the most relevant articles that relate to that query. So let's switch over here and talk about how it works. And I almost forgot to bring up my handy dandy sidebar agenda over here so you can see when I'm not in the slides, we're over here in this web page, and I'm actually using a PixieBrix sidebar over here to keep track of all of the links and demos and everything we're going through. So here's the AI knowledge base lookup. Again, using ChatGPT to recommend articles sourced from a Google Sheet. So activating it is super easy. You'll just go through and you'll select the Google Sheet that has the information. You can use our built-in OpenAI integration. There's no need to create your own OpenAI keys or anything like that. You can get started right out of the box. So let's now go over here. Oh, I knew it was going to make me log in today. All right, here we go. And so now let's go over here and let's see. I know my question is my phone was delivered, but the screen is cracked. Here's the tracking code. Let's right click on this. We could also use the keyboard shortcut, but we can use this, which is called the context menu. And we're going to select the AI KB Assist. And we're going to say, look that up, please. Go look in that spreadsheet. Go recommend something that relates to this. You can see it's behind the scenes kind of working, takes it a second. But we now have this sidebar panel that's appeared with relevant questions. It literally searched the Google Sheet and has come back with the answers for these different things. And so you can see, like, oh, yeah, this is the one that I want. And then just respond to that over here. So that's our AI knowledge based lookup and saves you a ton of time, honestly, from having to, worry about where, like, saving time from having to go look up the source of information. You can just go straight to it, have AI figure out what it needs, and modify that as needed be. So that's great. Related to that, another thing you do on a sport team is you're going to be answering questions, right? And so there's a lot of time where someone's asking a question. It could be in your community, it could be something coming into you via support channel. And what we can do is highlight a question, and then OpenAI will read that question and answer it for you. And return an answer. And so this tends to work best with well-known topics. If you have a very specific menu, if you have a very specific menu, it's not going to actually, or sorry, if you have a very specific a product, then it's not going to know as much about it because you're kind of dependent on what AI knows. But yeah, sorry, just real quick, I'm noticing that you all aren't seeing the context menu, so let me actually fix that with the screen share because I think I know why it's doing that. Let me reshare it. Present, share screen. I forget that it really wants it to be like my full screen instead of just the Chrome window to see the context menu. So, all right. So now when I show you context menu, it's going to make more sense. All right. All right. So let's talk about answering questions with OpenAI again. Here's the marketplace listing again, describing what I'm mentioning here. And you can see, again, you can configure it to say how many responses you want, how you want that to work, and it's going to return some answers. So here's, I like to, try it out in different places. Let's try Stack Overflow. So what we're going to do here is we're going to highlight this question here. And then we're going to right click, and you all should see the context menu now. Okay, I'm seeing over here in StreamYard. You should be able to be seeing it. And now I go to this PixieBrix section, and I'm going to look for this action. It's called Answer Question with OpenAI. And again, just to kind of prove a point, I can also do this from the PixieBrix quick bar, which I activated with keyboard shortcut that I set. And by default, it's Command or Control M. And so I'm going to click Answer Question with OpenAI. So it's going to think about it. It's going to go do all the AI magic. Go look in the back and basically query OpenAI and try to figure out what's going on here and what kind of, try to come up with an answer for it. And so obviously the longer the text, the longer it's going to have to think about to try to get something in place for that. And so it's thinking really hard. I gave it a really long question, but you can see here, you can actually see the question here if you forgot what you asked, but here's an answer. And again, this is going to work better for things that, something like programming, or if you have like a super well-known product, if you have something that's very, very specific, OpenAI may or may not know about it. But if there's general sort of like debugging questions, this is fantastic for that. And so if, it could also be helpful if someone's asking you, how does your product compare to this other well-known one? Well, this could be, a good way to get some intel on how that other product might do something or the other. So that is a big one. I enjoy using that. Like I said, there's definitely a lot of cases where it works really well and some where it doesn't. But you, as long as if AI doesn't know about your product, then that's where you just use the first one we showed with the AI knowledge lookup, because you can give it a specific set of data for it to look at. So you're pretty much covered either way with those. So the next one we want to talk about is summarizing case status. And this is super helpful, especially if you're working with a bunch of other folks on a case and it's not just you, because you might be able to remember the last thing you said and what all is going on in this ticket. But if you're working with others, they might be coming in the morning and trying to get up to speed on what's happened. So the way this one works, I'm going to go back to over here. So here's the marketplace listing again, so you can see exactly what that looks like and how it's going to work. And then we're going to go right over here to back to Zendesk. And we've got this ticket. You saw me in it before, but there's been a couple interactions going on here. And rather than having to read through and come up to speed, I can just ask PixieBrix and AI to summarize the case. And it's going to read through the different messages here and kind of loop through and come up with a summary so that I can quickly get back up to speed with whatever's going on here. So you can see I can, close these as I've read them. I can open them up and really get a summary of agent said this, agent said this, here's what's going on with this sort of thing. So it's a great way to, like I said, quickly get up to speed. It's fantastic if you're collaborating and you have other people you're working on, or it's just great even if you're on your own, but you have so many cases that you can't possibly be expected to scroll through the entire history of something to get up to speed every single time you work on it. By the way, if you have any questions as we're going through, feel free to post in the chat. I will get to them. Some of my colleagues might be able to answer them sooner than me too, but definitely feel free to post if you've got any questions or if you're seeing anything and you're like, how does that work? Or tell me more. The next use case we're going to go through, this one is all about translating text. And so this does pretty much what it sounds like. You can translate text in a sidebar. And so the way that works is it's going to, when you configure it, you'll select a default language. So let's say you're typically translating to English, or maybe you're typically translating to Spanish or something. And after you can set a default, but then still change it as you run the mod. If you're like, I generally want Spanish, but this time I actually want French. This is really helpful for teams that have users from around the world speaking multiple languages and need that multilingual support, which is kind of tricky to do sometimes. So, just to demo kind of how that one works, here's the marketplace listing, just so you can kind of see. And again, this is, you can configure that target language, but again, when you actually run it, you'll be able to select a different language on the fly. So let's just do it over here on this mod, right? So I'm going to take this text and I'm going to right click, open up that context menu again, and I'm going to say translate language. And you can see immediately this sidebar popped up and it translated that text to Spanish. I can copy it to my clipboard. I can open here to see what the original was. And let's say I'm like, actually, no, I'm going to want that in Thai. You can click that and it's going to translate it right there on the fly for you. So it's super quick, super easy to do. And again, it's very useful. I find it useful too. Sometimes if you're like learning a language, so it's sometimes great to practice and think through like reading something in English or reading something in Spanish and then having this to lean on if you're unable to translate something. So I think it's great. It's a really, really helpful mod, but just one of the many you can add to your toolkit. That's kind of the nice thing about PixieBrix too. One of my favorite parts is that you can, all of these come with PixieBrix, whereas if you wanted this kind of functionality, you'd either have to build it on your own, you'd have to, you may be able to find 1,000 different Chrome extensions, but then you'd need 1,000 different Chrome extensions in your browser. And I like being able to have one Chrome extension that I can use to build any sort of interface that I need on any sort of website. And so I just saw this question. If the response is not expected, then how do you regenerate a new response? Um, Response is not expected. What do you mean by that? Do you mean that like the if there wasn't a response, or sorry, I might need you to clarify that question a little bit. Or if somebody in the chat can jump in on that. I think I need a bit more clarification to answer that, but we will get to that. And yeah, the next mod I'm going to show you all is summarizing text. And so this does exactly what it sounds. We're going to highlight text on a page, and then PixieBrix and AI is going to turn a summary of whatever that text is. So quickly helping you get up to speed. And then, yeah, that's great for quickly summarizing blog post or perhaps documentation. If someone's asking how to do something, you have a whole article on it, you want to respond to them with a summary of that and then link them to the entire article. Here's how we would do that. Just for reference, here's the listing over here. I'm actually going to go do this on one of our blog posts so you can just kind of see what this looks like. So I'll just highlight this section here, and then I'm going to go back to quick bar here, and I'm going to say summarize selected text. So it's kind of working behind scenes, reading through it, parsing through, creating a summary, and it's going to pop open here in the sidebar panel in a second once it has summarized. Yep. So you can see here, basically took all of that text, condensed it into this group here. You can just click copy to clipboard, and it's going to copy that to your clipboard so you can send to a customer, put in an email, do whatever you need to do with it. So I think this is also a super helpful way to quickly get up to speed and learning new materials. If there's been an update to a product or different sort of things, you may not need the whole detailed explanation. You may just need the gist of it. This is perfect for that. So love using this for that. And looking back to our question, I saw Todd's in there talking about the retry brick and resubmitting the query. Okay, so I think you were asking if you if the response that you get from ChatGPT is not expected, how would you try it again? So yeah. So Todd's talking about the, adding a regenerate button or similar and asking the user to basically rerun the mod and try it again. So that's a good way to go about it. And I find when I'm building, typically I have to play around with the prompt a little bit. And the more robust I make the prompt, the more it can handle and actually make sure to always return something expected. So that's just another tip from my side of things. All right. And now we are going to talk about analyzing sentiment. And so, what this one does is this lets you highlight any text on any web page, and PixieBrix and AI will review the text and describe the mood of what's going on with that. And so, that is super helpful for if you're actually trying to understand, what's going on, like what is the mood behind this, and it can be useful for documentation if you're trying to keep track of different, how are people feeling about things? How many people are happy with my team, how many people are not happy with my team, what's the right way to kind of go about this, like if you're trying to collect data or just if you're trying to even make sure your tone sounds in the right sort of way. So one of the things that I like to do, let me switch over here to stream. So yeah, so you can highlight this text over here, right click again, and we've got this analyze sentiment. And it's going to just bring up a quick, simple sidebar that shows you what the text is and shows you what the mood was detected. And if it was like angry, threatening, like that's obviously good for you to know and be able to take action on accordingly for that. So that's a pretty important one. So I like being able to use that. And the beauty of PixieBrix is you can customize whatever you need to with this, right? So you can use this on Twitter. You can use this in various websites. It works with any selected text. And you could also build onto this if you wanted to save that to a Google Sheet. For instance, every time you check text, you wanted to take what that text was and save the mood that was detected to a Google Sheet. Super easy to do that. And then you can build charts and analysis off of it and be able to show how people are feeling and the general sentiment of your customers. So that's a pretty great one. All right, and then we're going to show my last and maybe one of my favorites. This one is, we call it fix and rate text. And basically, you can score and rewrite responses based on it'll analyze according to your brand guidelines. And so when you create the mod, you'll configure your brand guidelines. But by default, if you just activate what we have out of the marketplace, it's going to be, pretty friendly, personable, kind of conversational, and casual. And so you can highlight any text and PixieBrix will score that based on the guidelines that were provided, and it will suggest alternatives. And it's great for helping keep your responses from your agents to your customers on brand and making sure you're, staying in the right sort of tone. And so a great example, I'm going to show you. Let's go back over here. We'll just go straight back here to Zendesk. And, we've got this one, the customer's angry. They're angry, threatening. We just analyzed that sentiment. Well, maybe I'm kind of angry and I'm not happy with, how they responded to that. And so I start to type this. And then I'm going to use my check brand guidelines with ChatGPT. Click that. And it's going to read that and it's going to see how it fits on that criteria that we've mentioned. And then also offer suggestions for here's how I might be able to do that better or rewrite it. And so you can see this one's not very good according to our brand guidelines. It's not positive. It's not really concise or conversational or factual. And then we get a little snippet with overall feedback and basically says it's not appropriate. It's none of the things you want. And then it actually shows you a suggestion here. And you can see how much better that sounds. And just copy that to clipboard, go over here, paste that right in, and boom, you've now suddenly, saved yourself a disaster here. You've had some help with thinking through the right way to say this. So that works out pretty well, right? And so yeah, so that's one of my other favorites. And now we're going to talk about how you can customize tools with PixieBrix. And so all of these that we've just shown, they're out of the box and you can see kind of how they work. You can activate them, but it doesn't stop here. And like I was saying, you can have one Chrome extension that lets you do everything you need to do rather than needing to have a bunch of different ones. And so the beauty of that is that we have documentation and tutorials. So there's different ways to help you understand how you can customize a mod and how to build your own workflow. So you're not on your own. You're not, in any sort, you're not stuck with how to do this or how it works. We're going to help you, walk you through. We have the community where we're around to answer questions. The other key parts to think through when you're like, okay, so what am I build? How do I build with PixieBrix? We have bricks, which makes sense, right? And basically, you can think of bricks as steps in your workflow, and so they're different sort of actions. So let me actually go back over here and open up the page editor and show you what that kind of looks like as I'm going through here. So to open up the page editor, you're going to click the inspector and open these Chrome DevTools. You're going to go over to PixieBrix, and let's just take a look at let's look at this mod here. So all of these different steps in here, these are called brick actions, and so these are the steps in the workflow. You can think of each one serves a very specific purpose. And on top of that, we have integrations. And so integrations are, you see we work with ChatGPT. We have ones where we work with Trello and can fetch and send data through the Trello API. And there's a bunch of different tools, Jira, you name it. Jumping back to my slides real quick, we've got Airtable, Notion, Pipedrive, Google Sheets, all sorts of ones that you might be interested in. So that's a good way to combine all of your workflows together. And then for prompts, that's where we're going to head back over here and talk about how to edit prompts. And so let's say you saw this brand guidelines one and you're like, oh my gosh, that's super interesting. I would love to customize this, but my brand guidelines are a little bit different. Well, here's how you would do that. So let's go to this one, and you've activated it from the marketplace. Once you've done that, it's going to show up here. So you're going to copy the mod, and this is how you duplicate and kind of customize on your own. You click these three buttons, you click make a copy, and then you'll be prompted to give it a sort of alias. You can think of this as kind of like a username, and so you can call it whatever. Just call this demo test, blah, 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 blah. And, you can call this my version or whatever you want just to distinguish it, and then just click create. And so you can now get rid of this old one because you're going to be customizing your own. And so if you want to customize it, there's two sub mods inside of it. And that's because one is triggered from the context menu, which is what happens when you right click. And the other one is triggered from that quick bar. And so the things that happen in these are identical except for those very first bricks. So I'm going to show you how to do this to this first one, and then you just will need to replicate it for the second one. A hack is you can just kind of delete the second one, fix everything you need in here, and then go to add and do quick bar action. And you can basically just set up that trigger and then click this to add that to the mod you just made. So I called it demo, my version, that one, add it in there. And then you can copy and paste the bricks. So you can see that when we're actually in here, I can take this whole brick and I can copy it and paste it in there. So that way you don't have to actually redo it each time. But first, what we're going to do in this mod, you'll see here's the different bricks. We're going to go to this HTTP request brick. And if you scroll down here, you're like, I'm nervous. Is this coding? It's really not coding, because all you're doing is we're going to go edit the prompt in here. And this is effectively what we're passing ChatGPT. And so you would just change this with different things that relate to your brand guidelines. So maybe it's maybe it's witty, or maybe it's, something a little bit more buttoned up, or however you want to describe it. I actually have a tutorial I'm going to share a link with you where I went through this mod and I reworked it to sound like Leslie Knope. I don't know if you've ever seen Parks and Rec. It's a fantastic show. If you haven't seen it, you totally should. But Leslie Knope is one of the most positive, energetic, exciting people I've ever seen. And so I rewrote this to help me rewrite text to sound like Leslie Knope. So I came up with like some of her brand guidelines, which was like energetic, collaborative, a couple different things like that. So just update these with what you're looking for. Literally just, you can type in here and replace the text. You probably don't want an angry tone, but you could say that there if you wanted to. Put whatever you want in there. And then next, you'll see down here, we have an example response. You may want to update that if you like. If there's like this is probably a pretty standard sort of like example, like a response you might get from your team, but you can actually plug this in with something that you've actually had a ticket with lately, if you'd prefer to do that. And then you're going to update these with the same four you mentioned up top. So whatever those were, just replace that with the text here. And then provide an example of overall feedback and how this would how you would rate this response. So let's say whatever your brand guidelines were, let's say it's to sound like Leslie Knope and be energetic. You get this response. Here's how you might reword it to sound like, what it ideally should say. And then the last thing you're going to change is you're going to fix this one to be the very first option. So like I said, let's pretend we changed that to angry tone, you would change that to angry. And that way it kind of triggers ChatGPT to give it the exact, you know, format that you're going to need to pass it through. So the next one we go down to, we're going to scroll down here. We're going to go to this create chat response with ChatGPT. So click in here and very similar sort of thing, right? We're just going to update this prompt in here as well. So we basically, this is the one that's rewriting. So the one we just edited is scoring the text on how it fits in those guidelines. This is rewriting it. And so this is where we're going to add, you know, those same 4 criteria to however many we want. We can just add a couple if we don't want to add them all, but add what you would want to rewrite it to, and then include some original responses and examples of how you would respond in that way. So if someone says this, here's how Leslie Nope might rewrite that, or you know, your brand might rewrite that, and think through that. And so give it 2 examples there, and then that's really all you need to change there. And then the very last thing you need to do, go to this render document, and this is where you can see how this is going to actually, sorry, it's this render document. This is how you can see how it's going to preview in the sidebar when you run it. And so you really don't need to change too much here. I know it looks a little codey, but really all you need to do is see where it says positive tone here, double click that, and then go over here and change that. So change this to be that first criteria you mentioned. Click over here where it says concise. Change that to the second criteria you mentioned, because this will make sure that the values that are returned match up with the labels on the chart for scoring it. So do that for all 4 of them. And these are again the 4 that you mentioned in, you know, that very first HTTP one where we came up here. This one, these things here. That's where you're going to want to make sure those all match. And then yeah, once you do that, you're good to go. You're able to run this right away. You'll see it as an action. So for instance, like you can already see that I have, you know, my new quick bar item that I made here, or there's multiple check brand guidelines with ChatGPT, because I think actually this one's probably the forked one that I made, and you can see, or probably this one's the forked one that I made, and it's going to run the other version. And so if you want to change that text to be something else, you can go over here and just change this to be Brittany made this. You can see it shows up right there. So yeah, so that's exactly how you can customize mods and do whatever you really need to do with that. And so yeah, I'm just going to take a pause real quick here and check in the chat. I see Todd's got all sort. Todd is on top of these questions. Love it. Thank you, Todd. Yeah, Bartika. Yeah, interesting use case can be built through this. Like, there's so many super interesting things that people are doing with it. It's very cool to see. I love working in the community because I get inspired by people will come and be like, "Can I do this?" And then we'll work through. Yeah, actually, you can. Or they'll just straight up come to me and say, "Here's what I'm doing with this," and I'm like, "That's really awesome. I love to see that." So that is really cool, and I love. Yeah, it honestly makes me very excited to see this, and that's kind of why I'm so passionate about this space, is because I think we're really getting to a point where people have very specific ways they need to use tools, and we can only do so much to actually, you know, I can't, like, I love using Trello, but I can't get them to implement every single feature that I want. But now I can kind of build the features that I want and make it work the way I need it to. So I love to be able to see that and do that. So popping back to the slides, yeah, if you're ready to get started with PixieBrix, I'm going to include a link for that tutorial that I just mentioned about customizing this mod. This is all being recorded. We're going to send you these slides, you know, all of that sort of stuff. But if you're ready to get started, install PixieBrix. First of all, it's free. You'll just need to use your Google account or your Microsoft account, or you can even just use an email address and use a magic link to sign in if you'd like. So it's super easy to do that. Next, activate mods. That's the best way to get started. Head to the PixieBrix marketplace, which I've got a handy dandy link for us here. Yeah, it's just pixiebrix.com/marketplace. You can see if you're on the website, it's right up in the banner there. Head over there, click on the AI tag, click on customer success, and you can see the different kinds of mods that are available for you to use. And so try it out, start playing around with them. And as you do that, join the community. So we have a Slack community where, like I've mentioned throughout this webinar, that you can post questions, you can get help if you're trying to build something, whatever you need. We're here for you, and we're happy to help, and you can get some inspiration. So definitely head on over there, and I'll be over there. I probably check that Slack more than I check my own text messages, so should just start telling my family to like message me through there. But yeah, so yeah, if you want to chat, follow me on Twitter, head over to the PixieBrix chat in Slack, or yeah. Um, and so that's pretty much what we've got here today. Are there any questions, or is there anything else? I think we've actually kind of made it through the questions in the chat. I see Todd and Jasmine talking about HIPAA compliance. Yeah, data processing happens on your device. It's not being sent anywhere unless you're calling like OpenAI or a various API. And then at that point, I assume it depends on that API's compliancy. So yeah, cool. Well, if there's no other questions, or if there are other questions, definitely post them in the chat, or like I said, head over to Slack, and we'll be happy to communicate over there. I love making new friends in there. And I'm super excited to help. I hope this has been helpful. If you've learned something new, I'd love to hear what you thought was interesting. We're going to be sending out an email later with, again, the recording for this, as well as the actual the slides and links to all the things we mentioned, including that tutorial where you can basically create your own AI prompt. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining, and I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up, but you know how to reach us if you've got questions. Thank you so much for joining.